Zakah on merchandise. Throughout the ages and different periods in history, trade remained the means to exchange beneficial commodities between the people in all corners of the world. Islam made for merchandise a special form of zakah. So anything which is displayed for buying and selling in order to achieve a profit, like cars, clothes, material, iron, wood, and others, zakah is obligatory on them. This is because of Allah saying, "O you who believe, spend of the good things which you have legally earned." And Allah saying, "Take sadaqah," that is alms, "from their wealth." There are conditions for the zakah on merchandise to be obligatory. Their value must reach the nisab, and the nisab is calculated from the value of gold and silver. A lunar year must lapse on them, and they should be for the sole purpose of business, to earn a living from them, that is, not for personal use. The scholars said, if one changes his intention from selling to employing the merchandise for personal use, the year being counted is stopped. But if he reverts to his intention of business, a new year is started afresh, until he does this in order to escape zakah. In such a case, the year that was counted at first is not disrupted. As to how zakah is paid on merchandise, then after a complete year has elapsed, the trader takes stock of the merchandise for sale and its cost according to its current market price. Subsequently, he pays zakah from this, either from the goods directly or from its monetary value, as the need of the poor may dictate. If the poor need the zakah in the form of goods, it is obligatory for the trader to pay it as such. But if the poor need the zakah in its monetary value, it is obligatory for the trader to pay zakah in this form, and there is no sin on him if he pays zakah either way. The scholars explain that zakah is only payable on the circulating capital that is set aside for buying and selling with the intention of making a profit. As for fixed assets, those are not included in the calculations, and zakah is not paid on such. For example, shelves and refrigerators in which goods are stored, vehicles for transport, equipment for lifting loads and similar items. It is not stipulated to possess the nisab for the whole year from the beginning to the end. It is enough to just attain the nisab at both the beginning and end of the year. As to how does a trader calculate zakah on his property, then the scholars have set down some easy, clear steps. Firstly, the trader evaluates the merchandise as he has according to its present price in the market. Then he adds whatever money he has to this, whether this is for his business or otherwise. After that, he adds whatever money he has loaned and whose settlement has been guaranteed. Then he subtracts from this sum any amount he owes. And finally, he then pays zakah on whatever is left, the zakah being 1/4 of a tenth, which is 2.5%. As many Muslims deal in trade all over the world, many trade goods are transported. So to calculate the zakah which is due on such trade goods, the assets upon which zakah is payable are inventoried and estimated on the day the zakah is due. By using the statement of the financial position, the budget, regardless of the presence of profit or loss in the profit and loss account. Materials used for packaging are not estimated alone if they were not bought for the sole intention of being sold individually. If, however, they were used to sell trade goods, then they should be estimated if they increase the value of those goods, such as special bags that have a special packaging used to store the trade goods in, etc. But if they do not increase the value, for instance plain paper bags, then they are not included in the evaluation. The scholars also explained that the evaluation for each trader, whether a wholesaler or a retailer, is according to the price which he can usually purchase the goods at the end of the haul, which is 1 Hijri year, and 1 Hijri year equals 354.5 days. That is, the replacement value, which is different from the sale price or the market value, and the historical cost, meaning cost at the time of purchase, as well as the book value. If prices change between the day zakah is due and the day it is paid, the price considered shall be that of the day it is due, whether the price has increased or decreased. Concerning zakah of transferred goods, before taking possession of them, the responsibility of paying it falls on its owner. Ownership of the purchased goods is realized according to how or where they are received. These purchased goods, which are on their way, if purchased, for example, on the basis of delivery at the port of the seller, it enters into the buyer's ownership once it is delivered to the shipper. But if it was purchased on the basis of delivery in the port of the buyer, it enters into the buyer's ownership upon reaching the port of arrival. If the traded money includes different currencies, such as gold or silver, it should be estimated to decide on the amount that must be paid in the currency, in which the merchant trades to evaluate his trade goods according to the prices prevailing on the day the zakah is due. Concerning trade goods that the buyer pays for in advance, but does not take immediate possession of, the zakah is not obligatory for the buyer before taking possession of them, but it is still due from the seller. As for raw materials included in the manufacture of the material and supplementary materials, for raw materials before processing, intended to be included in the composition of the manufactured material, such as iron in the automotive industry and oils in the manufacturing of soap, its zakah is estimated according to its value by which it can be purchased at the end of the year. This also applies to animals and the like, and grains and plants intended to be manufactured. But for supplementary materials, which are not included in the composition of the manufactured material, such as fuel in industries, no zakah is due, just like with fixed assets. Concerning the zakah of non-manufactured goods and unfinished goods, zakah on these is like that of the zakah on trade goods, that is, according to its value in its current state at the end of the whole, that is, 1 lunar year. If another reason for zakah exists with trade goods, such as plants, the zakah paid on it is the same as that of trade goods. Due to the passage of time and the development of different types of trade, corporations appeared. It is possible for a corporation whose capital is $3 million to divide its capital stock into 10,000 parts. Each part, which costs $300, is known as a share. In such a case, one may ask how one should pay zakah on such shares. The company's management pays it on their behalf if that was stipulated in its basic regulations, or the shareholder delegated the company to pay it. If the company pays the zakah, the fiqh council affiliated to the organization of the Islamic conference adopts that zakah is imposed on that company, and it considers it a legal person, following the principle of joint ownership contained in the sunnah pertaining to the zakah of cattle, which has been generalized by some scholars on all properties. In other words, all the shareholders' monies are considered as the money of a single person, and zakah is thus imposed on them in terms of nisab and the amount of zakah, etc. But the majority of scholars hold the opinion that the principle of joint ownership should not be applied for the zakah of companies. Rather, the share of each partner is considered individually. It is worth mentioning that the second conference of the Islamic Research Academy took the opinion of the majority of scholars on this point and did not agree with the principle of joint ownership, but considered each money individually, and therefore decided as follows. In companies, that have many shares which are owned by a number of individuals, the application of such provisions are not applied to the total corporate profits, but each partner's share is considered separately. In this case, the company's management should subtract from its capital the stock that is not subject to zakah, such as charitable endowment shares and those contributed to charities, and the company's fixed assets that are not subject to zakah, such as buildings, offices, furniture, and cars that are for use, and the like of assets which should not be subject to zakah. If, however, the company's administration does not pay out the zakah, shareholders should then pay out their own as follows. Zakah of shares of agricultural companies is paid out in the same way as the zakah of crops and fruits. Zakah of shares of commercial companies is paid out from both the original and the profit. Shares are estimated according to their market value at the time zakah is due. Zakah of industrial companies' shares are paid out on the net profit, but not on equipment and buildings and the like. If a shareholder sells his shares during the hawl, he adds their price to his money and pays out the zakah due on that money when a hawl passes. As for the buyer, he pays out his zakah upon the shares he bought, as mentioned before. There are types of properties for which zakah is not compulsory, like products of the sea, pearls, coral, and fish, unless they become trade goods. Goods intended for rent, such as real estate, cars, and others, are not subject to zakah. Zakah is due on the rent if it reaches the minimum nisab and a hawl has passed. Similarly, there is no zakah on objects that are for personal use, such as one's car and home.